It's never a good thing when your state has been taken advantage of so many times by sports franchises that you write a law that might prevent them from leaving you again. Welcome back, my friends. We're back to talk about the Columbus Crew. I thought this was done and dusted. I thought this was going to happen right here. We're gonna take the Columbus Crew, and we're going to woo, and we're going to take it from here, and like wee down here, and it's going to be sad, right? But it turns out that might not be the case. So let's talk about this. So this guy right here, Mike DeWine, is the Ohio Attorney General, and he has released a statement after a state representative whose name is Mike Duffy, now Mike and Mike, they're working the business in Ohio, pointed out there is a law in Ohio that talks about sports franchises that have gotten some sort of help from the state of Ohio and them leaving, because that's kind of happened a lot in Ohio, right? So let's take a look at the law. Let me take these guys down. Bloop, bloop. All right, here we go. So no owner of a professional sports team that uses a tax-supported facility for most of its home games and receives financial assistance from the state or political subdivision thereof shall cease playing most of its home games at the facility and begin playing most of its home games elsewhere unless, A, they enter an agreement with the political subdivision permitting the team to play most of its home games elsewhere. So essentially, you have to come to us if you want to leave or go play somewhere else, even if it's in the same city, because you're on a tax-supported facility, or give the political subdivision in which the facility is located no less than 6 months advance notice of the owner's intention to cease playing most of its home games of the facility, and during the 6 months after such notice, give the political subdivision or any individual or group of individuals who reside in the area the opportunity to purchase the team. Notice the effective date, 1996. So what I think they're going to be arguing here is we have this law in the books that if you are a sports franchise and you have a tax-supported facility, now that's a key phrase we'll talk about in a second. You either have to get permission from us to leave that tax-supported facility, even if it was in like if they moved to a new stadium, right? Like let's say the taxpayers gave millions of dollars for the stadium, and then they were like, "Oh, we don't like this. We want to move." You'd have to get permission, or you have to give a 6 months notice, and in those 6 months, you have to give any individual or group of individuals who reside in the area the opportunity to purchase the team. Now that's very interesting stuff, because that could mean the Ohio Attorney General and that state representative end up forcing the Columbus Crew to stay in Columbus. Now, don't get your hopes up too high, because there are some problems with this strategy. First, the law, written in 1996, that's 21 years ago, has never been tested. It's not gone to court. It's not had a reason to be used, right? So that's not come up. This would be the first time that's being challenged in one way or another. But it is a good strategy because it's essentially going to force one of a couple different things to happen. One, PSV, the ownership group of the Columbus Crew, could say like, "You're right, you got us, we're going to stay." But I think we all know that's not going to happen. MLS wants to move the team to Austin. Don Garber is in on it. They've had people working on behalf of MLS as consultants in Austin for quite some time before this was announced. So MLS wants to move the team to Austin, and obviously the ownership group does too. So they're not just going to go like, "Oh, you got me. Shucks." That's not going to happen. What could happen is they have to go back to the negotiation table. But what are they going to be negotiating, right? Like, "Hey, we want you to stay." "Well, we don't want to stay." Well, that's kind of an impasse, right? Well, you have to let somebody buy them. Well, they could jack the price up. MLS could make it $150 million. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. But that's where I could see another option is they force the Columbus Crew ownership to sell the team to someone in Columbus. And apparently there is a ownership group. I can't remember. It's like Columbus. I should have looked that up. It's like Columbus Forward or Columbus Together or whatever, has asked to do that, but been shot down. Now, you don't know how much they offered, if it was a fair offer, whatever. Or you could see PSV / MLS, because MLS is going to get into the mix on this, go to court with the state of Ohio over this. And they're going to argue, let's take this back here, that it says a tax-supported facility. Now, what's your interpretation on that? Does that mean that Columbus or the state of Ohio has given tax breaks to the team? Does it mean that taxpayer dollars directly went to fund the stadium? Because here's what I was reading up on this is the Columbus Crew leases state land at below market value for their parking lots, which they then make a profit on. So it's like, whatever. Let's say it was supposed to be $1 a square foot. They lease it for 50 cents a square foot, and they end up making a profit on the parking charges, right? Like, I just made those numbers up, but just as an example, right? So you could argue that they're getting tax support there because they're not being charged the full amount for the land, right? The stadium sits on tax-exempt land. That sounds like tax-supported to me, but if you get into a court, like maybe lawyers should say, like, well, just because it's tax-free doesn't mean it's tax-supported, because tax-supported means taxpayer dollars had to directly fund the stadium versus allowing us to use the land without paying taxes on it. So it's going to be really interesting. I thought this was 100% done. I thought they were moving, but it's kind of an interesting hook at the end by the state of Ohio to say, like, no, like, people have done this to us before, never again. And in 1996, they wrote a law, and now they're going to try and use it potentially against the Columbus Crew. So we'll have to keep tabs on this and see what happens. I'm going to link to this. I mean, not that you really need it, but I'll link to the Ohio law in the description of this video. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments. Do you think they can force them to stay? Do you think they can force them to sell? Or do you think if and when it goes to court that MLS and Precourt Sports Ventures ends up winning and they still move to Austin? All right, we'll see you in the next video. Hey there, just wanted to say, if you enjoy these videos about U.S. soccer and what's going on in America with soccer, I would ask that you would support the Patreon. So here's what's going on. YouTube is demonetizing pretty much all of my videos as soon as they go live. And then they set a thing where it says, like, after 1,000 views, we'll review it. And then all my videos aren't getting to 1,000 views, or if they are, it takes a long time. But they're getting reviewed 48 hours later after everybody has already watched them. So that's really crushing my ability to make any kind of money from an ad revenue standpoint. So we've had 10 nice people that have said, hey, I'm going to come alongside you and support the channel because I like what you do. I'd ask that you take a look. And there's a link, one of these, it's going to be over here somewhere with a link to my Patreon page. There's a video behind me that kind of explains what Patreon is. No pressure, but I want to throw it out there as you're looking at this stuff. I really appreciate your support, especially to all the patrons.